Thank you, Pastor Jeffress. And again, good evening, everyone. Before I introduce our panelists, we've got two panels tonight, and begin my opening remarks, I would like to thank First Baptist Church of Dallas and all the team who have been so helpful behind the scenes, working for many weeks to make tonight's event happen. Indeed, we'd like to welcome you to Unmasking Gender Ideology, Confronting Transgenderism and Protecting Children. My name, as I said, is Brandon Showalter, and I've been a journalist with the Christian Post in Washington, D.C. since the summer of 2016, and I'll be your moderator this evening. I'd like to begin by sharing some words from a 4-year-old boy whose name is Jonas. They were captured on home video and featured in the indie documentary called Dead Name by Broken Hearted Films. I was honored to be a contributor in this film that was released right before Christmas. That's his picture, and you can still see it at deadnamedocumentary.com. Let's roll this 15-second clip.
If you want girl parts and you don't have them, you can do special surgery where they turn your penis inside out and there's a vagina inside.
It's a gut punch, isn't it? Jonas probably didn't even know, little Jonas, what a pronoun even was, when he was led to believe by various adults in his life that he was born in the wrong body, and that he could irreversibly alter his genitals to become the opposite sex. And he's far from the only one facing this scenario, as countless children nationwide, indeed worldwide, now risk their childhoods being swept up into a cult-like contagion, and some of them are then exposed to institutionalized medical experimentation, the likes of which we have never seen. And as a result of this ideology, many families are being irretrievably fractured. Indeed, I've lost count how many desperate moms and dads have contacted me over the years who will do anything to save their children from irreversible medical harm. It is for children like Jonas and for those fractured families that we are gathered here today. Our panelists who are with us here on both front rows were part of our recent documentary-style investigative podcast series called Generation Indoctrination Inside the Transgender Battle, which I co-produced and hosted last fall. I'm also glad to welcome Dr. Jeff Myers of Summit Ministries in Colorado, who's here to speak tonight on our second panel about a free and downloadable ebook that he and I co-authored called Exposing the Gender Lie. And also on that panel, we're delighted to speak with Julia Jeffress-Sadler. We're so glad she could be a part of this as well. We believe at the Christian Post that the most significant moral, theological, and ethical question that is facing the church and society in the 21st century is twofold. One, what is a human being? And the second part, which is like the first, what does it mean to be a human being? For Christians, these crucial anthropological questions about who we are as human persons are not polite, agree to disagree issues. These are not secondary or tertiary doctrinal matters. They are primary. We believe very deeply in Genesis 1:27 that we are made male and female in God's image. And indeed, you can't get that wrong without getting the whole gospel wrong. And we believe that contemporary transgender ideology is not only a grave assault on the image of God on every person, and by extension on the gospel itself, but that this newfangled gender dogma is what our executive editor, Dr. Richard Land, who couldn't be here tonight but wanted to be, he calls it the epitome of self-idolatry, the ultimate attempt to become one's own God. But let's say you're here tonight and you're not a Christian. We welcome you. And many of our readers of the Christian Post are not Christians, and indeed some of our podcast series, the contributors, were not believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. The knowledge that human beings are sexually dimorphic mammals is knowledge that is accessible to everyone by human reason. This is an easily observable, manifestly true scientific fact. And yet today, much of the corporate press has been more than willing to obfuscate the basics of biology in service to a fashionable ideology by referring to males who merely claim to be female as she and her, while also employing a plethora of other politically correct gender euphemisms in their reporting. The Christian Post, however, will not play that deceitful language manipulation game. In fact, we were suspended from Twitter for 9 months for referring to Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services Rachel Levine, who is male, as a man. For not kowtowing to the newspeak on the social media platform, our account was frozen, But we refused to retract, and on the final day of 2022, thanks to Elon Musk, we were reinstated. Worst of all, gender ideology is wreaking havoc on the most vulnerable members of our society, including and especially children, teenagers, young adults, and a group we don't hear from too much, incarcerated women. Gender ideology is responsible for one of the worst medical scandals of all times, and it is without reservation or the slightest hesitation that we say that pushing transgenderism on kids, especially in the medical context, is horrific, unmitigated child abuse. Imagine a 15-year-old girl confused about her body who stumbles upon an unscrupulous surgeon on TikTok. This surgeon glamorously advertises top surgery and will readily amputate her breasts in pursuit of a lie. This is happening in America today. We must ask, can children in the throes of puberty or in the often awkward years of adolescence possibly understand the ramifications of and then give consent to the chemical foreclosure of their fertility by way of puberty blockers and wrong-sex synthetic hormones? No, they cannot. And where do these medical atrocities start? Many of them begin in the schools, public and private, as an entire generation of children is being indoctrinated into patently false claims that they have a gender identity apart from their sex, that they can choose to be male or female, or instead that they can be transgender, or non-binary, or genderqueer, or anything else, another option from an ever-growing list of fictitious identities untethered from anything materially real. The Christian Post will not have it on its conscience to keep quiet about any of this, and through our podcast series, our ongoing frontline news coverage, and everything else we do, we remain committed to reporting the unvarnished truth, even if we stand alone. And I'm so glad that all of you are here tonight to learn more and to be equipped to engage these issues with the kind of truly compassionate and uncompromising Christian witness that the hour demands. And with that, we would like to play a 1-minute trailer for our podcast series that we produced last fall. Stay tuned for season 2. It will be out shortly. And I'd like to invite my first panel to the stage.
What a lie from the pit of hell. These folks that are telling these children, oh, it's not going to hurt you long term. These kids are being sold a lie.
Botched and destroyed lives, the loss of parental rights, growing intolerance. The costs of the transgender craze are quickly mounting. On the Generation Indoctrination podcast, we'll explore the disturbing philosophy, the diabolical dynamics in our schools, the legislative battles, and the ominous chronology that brought us to this juncture. In addition to the disturbing history, we'll investigate the dire implications on kids and families, as well as the unsettling and heartbreaking stories from those directly impacted.
I was floored. They are colluding and collaborating with minor children to exclude parents from these critical decisions.
We'll explore how medical organizations and clinics have co-signed the affirmation-only philosophy, pushing facts and reality to the side and punishing detractors. The chaotic state of the gender wars is no doubt having a serious impact on families and our institutions, and most importantly, young lives. The size and scope of the problem is undeniable. Generation Indoctrination explores the problem and paves the way toward a solution. Join us as we tackle this essential issue.